When you think about anything Gossip Girl related, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? And who is in it? Could it be this?
Sorry, but you're not on the list.
Of course I am. This is my dream.
Or this?
My answer was George Son. Love her. Idolize. Worship.
Or this?
Words, 8 letters. Say it, and I'm yours.
Or maybe this?
Haven't you heard? I'm the crazy bitch around here.
Blair Waldorf is not only the queen bee / mean girl of the Upper East Side, she's also the essence of Gossip Girl. During the 6 seasons that Gossip Girl lasted, there wasn't one of them where Blair didn't have at least one funny, heartbreaking, or iconic moment. And how she can be calculated and cruel as well as delicate and loving. Today we'll talk about how growth looked for Blair Waldorf and how by accepting herself as a whole she ended up having everything she ever wanted. As I explained on the Serena video from a couple of weeks ago, I'm strictly going to talk about the 6 seasons of the show, so spoiler alert.
Because not everyone wants to be Blair Waldorf.
Not everyone can be.
Blair Cornelia Waldorf was born on November 15, 1990, the only daughter of Eleanor and Harold Waldorf. From a young age, Blair has had an incredible determination to succeed in a competitive strike, while at the same time puts extra effort into trying to keep the appearance of a sugar, spice, and everything nice kind of girl. From the first season, we notice how she has a stronger relationship with her father and a more difficult one with her mother, and they all have a delicate family balance until Harold left Eleanor for one of her models, which visibly shattered Blair's life on top of not being able to rely on Serena after she left to Connecticut. After Serena comes back to the city, we see that Blair is uncomfortable with her comeback and she rushes to sleep with Nate until he stops her to greet Serena. Later she finds out through Nate that he and Serena slept together during the Shevers wedding, which makes Blair furious, but she handled it in the most Blair-like fashion possible.
I always knew you were a whore. I never took you for a liar, too.
Blair retaliates against Serena in every way possible until they make out and everything seems to go back to normal with an occasional fight originated by said betrayal. While Blair keeps trying to patch things up with Nate, he seems not interested in it, while also carrying the weight of his family drama, and the fact that he's in love with Serena. Nate's disinterest in Blair makes her break up with him. Hurt and angry, she goes to Chuck's bar, does a striptease, and sleeps with him at the back of his limousine. Action which will kickstart not only the most defining and controversial relationship for her, but also for every Gossip Girl fan. Blair's storylines alternate between these 3 main topics. Her frenemies relationship with Serena, which was way more prevalent in earlier seasons and was a detonator for a lot of her confidence and trust issues, since the attention given to Serena usually places her in the back of every situation where she wanted to be the main character. This is shown with factors like Eleanor, Nate, and Yale, to mention some of them. All of these while she also recognizes how important is Serena in her life, since in spite of all her flaws, their bond is incredibly strong.
We're your best friends. Anything you do is something we did too.
Her social status and her attempts to escalate and remain at the top. When we met Blair at Constance, there's not much struggle since she mostly ruled with an iron fist. But when she graduated high school, we see the situation continuously. Blair is trying to rule in many different ways, for example at NYU, Columbia, as a consort princess of Monaco, and finally Eleanor Waldorf Designs.
I am not all scheme and no substance.
Her scheming, plotting, and manipulating, which is not in itself a plotline and more an action to get to the previous ones, but it's important to mention it since sometimes they are the detonators of some of the most interesting plots in the show and for her. Through this, she goes from helping friends to causing her enemies a huge distress.
Thank you, Jesus. No, thank you, Blair.
And lastly, her relationship with Chuck. Love it or hate it, this was quite a defining relationship for her in almost every aspect. It's the first indication of Blair embracing her darkest side and fighting against it at the same time, which, as an integral part of her development as a character, is something we're going to get more into detail next.
Then how can you be so sure?
Because you believe in me.
The socially aspirational side of Blair is what she wants to be acknowledged by. Her good breeding, her money, her exemplary behavior and good grades, her pristine beauty and style, and to be seen as an unreachable perfection that ironically she has worked meticulously hard to achieve and maintain. She has carefully laid out a plan for her that would lead her to live the life she always envisioned, leaving little to no room for any deviation from it, let alone any consistent change.
That my 2-year plan might as well become 20.
Blair's intelligence, thoroughness, and grace is well known and quite admired by people in and out of the show. What she sets her mind to, she conquers. However, life can be quite unpredictable and not everything can be controlled. But Blair doesn't see this as a limitation. In fact, this uncertainty and, let's face it, overbearing insecurity she suffers from activates her more mischievous and manipulative side. Her dark side is this part that she doesn't want to be seen as, and ironically is what got her most of the things she ever aspired to. Because it has allowed her the freedom to explore how to use her intelligence, her resources, and other people to her favor. This is the side of Blair whose plans succeed, but also backfire when she goes overboard guided by her rampant insecurity. This makes for pretty comic and pretty upsetting moments for her. It's her scandalous self that she doesn't want anyone to see at the risk of looking like the villain when she wants to be seen as a princess.
I'm sick of always looking like Darth Vader next to Sunshine Barbie.
Her manipulative, cruel, conniving, and scheming self is the drive and essence of Blair Waldorf. This side of her made her rule over the other girls in Constance, got her a spot in W, and the appreciation, respect, and fear of the people who wanted to emulate her and even dethrone her. She's an incredible force that only the brave ones dare to reckon with. She does seem to take advantage of these ugly qualities, but at the same time she shoves them under the rug to be seen as the perfect girl, when in reality, only integrating these qualities will make her achieve a life better than the one she envisioned for herself. I appreciate that this was acknowledged by her in the last seasons because it does show growth in the way she reconciled this prevalent internal conflict she had from the beginning.
My Grace Kelly did have talent. She got me straight A's and the perfect boyfriend, but it was my Grace Jones that had everyone wanting to dress like me. Not because they admired my hard work, but because they were fascinated by my ferocity.
Blair's relationships are not as extensive, but they are all remarkably important for her development as a person, especially the longest one she had, which ended up being Endgame. Chuck. But let's not get ahead and let's start in order. Nate was her childhood and teenage boyfriend. From the little we know about their earlier lives, they started dating at the age of 12. Nate fits the perfect mold that the princess aspirations of Blair wanted. He's rich, handsome, from an all-money family, amiable and kind. However, in spite of all these virtues, Nate is quite far from what Blair needs. He's passive, he's indecisive, and he started moving towards Blair only when she was not available to him and she was cold towards him. He had a huge double standard for her when she slept with Chuck compared to when he slept with Serena. And basically, the only reason she went back to him in season 2 is because he felt like the potential of a past life that was lost when she lost Yale. He's always been an ill fit for Blair, but she couldn't see it because she was latching off to a persona she knows she cannot be, but she was trying to at the time, which is something that happens as well with Marcus and Louis. I grouped these two because the storylines are similar for both of them. They were people who seemed to be ordinary and ended up being royalty. You can clearly see a before and after in Blair's treatment to them, from nada to happily ever after. And these are not different from the reasons why Blair stayed so long with Nate. They exemplify the world she wants to belong to and the sophisticated, graceful, and regal woman she aspires to be. And as a fallback, Blair is willing to throw her carefully planned future away at the prospect of becoming royalty. As I have mentioned in my Jenny video, Blair is not so different from Jenny. She does compromise a lot in order to belong to a higher sphere, like when she was willing to stick to conditions that didn't make her happy in order to obtain the title. However, unlike Jenny, she doesn't completely lose herself at the detriment of these prospects, and she's organized and resilient enough to bounce back in the face of disappointment.
My dreams at night
Yes, my child.
may not be about the man I'm going to marry.
The more time passes by, the more people seem to think that Dan and Blair were a healthier match than Blair and Chuck were. They were both interested in art, film, they both briefly interned for W, and they were both equally driven and focused on self-betterment, even at other people's expenses. Which, by knowing that Dan was Gossip Girl, would not be so far-fetched from the quote-unquote evil side of Blair. Dan was compassionate, attentive, and loyal to Blair's needs. He supported her even in moments where she was dating other people. They had a relationship based on mutual respect for each other's craft and interests.
You submitted it without reading?
Of course I read it. It was sharp and well observed.
She's even calmer and making better choices for her when she starts seeing him. Although Dan is loving towards Blair, it doesn't seem enough to make her love him to the same level he did. Even though Dan is Serena's first love, and she seems to still have feelings for him, I can safely say that this is the healthiest and most organic relationship Blair has been in. However, what this and her other relationships had in common is that there's always the looming presence of Chuck. Blair is always battling between two worlds, and Chuck's pull is quite a controversial topic on what serves her best interest. During the 6 seasons of Gossip Girl, we see them battling their demons, each other, their feelings, each other, their families, their expectations, and each other again. And out of all the time, we only have 1 season of them being a stable couple. Chuck is irresistible to Blair because, unlike her other partners, he accepts her for everything she is. In fact, he celebrates and even encourages the manipulative and cruel side of Blair, even before they were an item. He's the only one who doesn't judge her because he's the same kind of person she is. They recognize themselves in each other and make them feel at home in a place where everyone tells them what they're doing is wrong, even if they are wrong. The incredible chemistry and attraction they have to each other attracts a lot of games and unnecessary drama that keeps the anxiety at peak, but it's not a guarantee of longevity in an usual setting. Chuck does celebrate Blair, but also squishes her and causes her incredible amounts of unnecessary pain and stress that could be better used if she was focused on herself. We cannot deny that there is a lot of love between them, but even the way it is expressed is quite particular. There is a lot of debauchery involved, which initially clashed with Blair's conservative and romantic values, but she has grown to like it and appreciate it, as it was an unexplored part of her, a part that needed to get out, or otherwise she was going to explode under the pressure of her own expectations. There's also a lot of games and power play involved that in a real setting will make this relationship all-consuming and intoxicating, and not in the best way. To be honest, I'm not fully sold on Chuck and Blair's relationship. My opinion, it is super unhealthy and dramatic, but hey, different strokes for different folks. And what we conceive as love is not the same for all of us. This never-ending drama seems to fit her romantic aspirations, but it couldn't be me.
Take Blair to be your lawfully wedded wife?
3 words, 8 letters.
Blair, do you take Chuck to be your lawfully wedded husband?
1 word, 3 letters, yes.
Blair's upbringing, in spite of how privileged it was, wasn't easy for her. It's evident in the first season of Gossip Girl that she had a quite tense relationship with her mother, who was more career-oriented and focused on how Blair's appearance would reflect on her instead of her daughter's well-being. It's not explained in the show, but I would assume it would feed her perfectionist tendencies and even the eating disorder that was briefly shown and discussed in the first season.
To that, you might find the low-fat yogurt more appealing.
I lost 2 pounds when you were away.
And you look marvelous.
Reason why she would be naturally drawn to Serena while also feeling resentful of her. Serena represents the freedom and the carelessness she sometimes wishes she could embody but doesn't allow herself to. This makes her see all the advantages that Serena has by embodying her true nature, while Blair is squished by her mother's expectations that slowly become her own, creating a fake persona that inevitably cannot contain her true self.
If Constance has a shining star, it's Blair Waldorf.
I know. I'm the perfect one.
Her need for control, although admirable to a certain point, can be a drawback when she takes it too far. Blair becomes more manipulative the less control she perceives she has, which proves that she doesn't trust herself enough to just let things be. and to let people see the quite evident qualities she has when she is not micromanaging life. She gets lopsided when she doesn't get what she wants. She does recover, but only as soon as she finds acceptance with her own essence, and this usually takes her a while. Unlike Serena, who's welcoming to everyone to the point of recklessness, Blair is quite closed off and she reserves her affections only for the people closer to her. She's fiercely loyal and protective of the ones who are in her heart, to the point of using her power not only to improve her life, but also the lives of those she loves and cares for.
Serena must have the hottest date ever. If he's got plans, he'll change them. And if he's out of town, he'll charter a G5 and fly home. Make it happen.
Which is why she can be quite vindictive and destructive to the ones who have crossed her. Serena, Eleanor, Chuck, surprisingly Nate sort of escaped from an intentional retaliation. In spite of the wrath she submits her subjects to, she forgives them and keeps them around her. Again, couldn't be me, but okay. To the ones who are not in her circle, however, she's very calculated. She studies people and learns how she can exploit them to benefit from it. And if it wasn't enough with her natural qualities, she does use less than ethical tactics to ensure her victory over others. Let's look at Nellyuki, for example. Or not to look too far, let's look at Jenny Humphrey. In a world where Jenny wasn't a social climber and Blair wasn't, well, the same thing but looking down, they would have been powerful together, as friends or business associates, like it kinda happened in the future. The lack of trust that Blair has in being lovable makes her go to wide lengths to ensure people wouldn't leave her, pretending to be perfect on one side and on the other intimidating and manipulating people to keep herself in a position of power. This perceived monster that a lot of people think when they see her only hides a wounded child in need of affection. However, in spite of how many pitfalls and disadvantages she had to overcome, we can see that there's definitely growth in Blair and her environment. She rejected marrying Louis and the title of Princess of Monaco at the risk of having a loveless and spiteful relationship with him. Her relationship with her mother improved. She became the head of Waldorf Designs after many failed attempts to assert herself as a powerful woman but with no particular talent. And she even dared to date Dan Humphrey and accept Jenny's talents in spite of her classist tendencies. I also want to point out the fantastic job that Leighton Meester did playing Blair. She brought her to life in the most vulnerable yet powerful way, which made a lot of people love Blair and even fear her through their screens. She could be as funny as she could be cruel, with always a prevalent hint of sensitiveness which made her acting cohesive and attention-catching. Blair's story is about acceptance, about how we can get further in life when we integrate and celebrate what sets us apart from other people and use it to our advantage. How we can really flourish when we recognize ourselves and how that can take us to places we have never imagined. And most important of all, how even the things that shame us can drive us closer to our true nature, and how this acknowledgement can keep us afloat in the face of adversity. Once again, thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment this video. Bye-bye!